Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thomas Ruzbazar with the Poet Warriors. Back at you. I see our subscriber numbers are going on up. That's a beautiful thing. Let's keep it going. And today I want to talk a little bit. It's been a while since I talked about the world of theater, of acting, and reflecting on the simplicity of acting and how all these different schools of acting, I think, sometimes complicate things. I know the mission of these techniques and exercises are not to, prevent expression, but to assist and tap into and extract expression. But I think more often than not, these cloud and obstruct, and a lot of these techniques, and I'm talking about, various schools, like, you heard here about Stanislavski method, Strasberg, the method, Sanford Meisner. We could go on and on. Of course, they have their own philosophies. They have their own approach in many ways. But I think over time, what I've learned, and maybe others, and I've picked up on some other actors talking about this, meaning actors who've been in the game, who've been doing it for many, many years. I think it's just basically about simplicity and trusting your instrument. And, if I'm talking about theater, not so much film. If I'm talking about theater is very much about using your body, being loose, being free, being relaxed, being able to tap into whatever nuance. You're talking about after time. This is a process which starts with, understanding the script. And that always happens. I think a good actor will always keep their script by their sides. It doesn't matter if you're doing a film. Sorry about that. If you're doing a film, if you're doing theater, but let's just focus on the stage, on theater. From day one, even before the first reading, cast reading, through rehearsal process and through the performance process, that script should be marked up. It should be dog-eared. It should be not so much about, the analysis part of it, because that takes place during, the rehearsal, the early stages, but those clues about those things that maybe during the 13th performance, I don't know why I said 13th, it's an unlucky number. Let's say the 7th performance, the 17th performance, an actor says something that you've heard probably a dozen times, hundreds of times through this process, and it hits you. It kind of does something in the moment. Or even before you go on stage, where you're just sitting, put on your makeup, your costume, there's your open script, you're just kind of going over your lines, and you see it. You see that line that maybe you say, maybe the playwright writes something that's a stage direction of sorts. Anything that captures you, captures your imagination, and that's the key. It's all about having the freedom, and I think simplicity is having the freedom, the trust with yourself, but also this is with others. I'm talking about a group, about a communal group, about the ensemble, about the director and the ensemble, having a sense of trust where the type of performance is simple, it's free, it's rooted very much in the physicality, in the doing of things, not so much heavy on the sense memory, where, a lot of times actors maybe go so inward, they forget about what's happening around them, that awareness, the sense of movement as it relates to motion and then emotion. I think theater is very much about that, and having the freedom, I know there is a sense of staging, a sense of specifics through a course of in the sense of a performance. But is there anywhere outside of that, maybe 50% of that, 60% of it, where it doesn't have to be so quote unquote locked in, where the actors have to do this thing by rote every single time over? And I have two people right out my door, just standing right by my door. Oh my God, oh God, okay. You see, there. brought a little nuance to what we're doing, a little reaction. Anyway, yeah, I think it's all about the simplicity and the freedom and the trust. And really what I'm talking about, it's all rooted in that simplicity and not overthinking. I think overthinking is deadly. I think obsessing in a way that's overthinking and stopping and inhibiting you. Compromise in terms of creativity, working with the director, working with other actors. Yeah, you got to figure it out, of course. But in the moment, in the process, the actor needs to be free enough, trusting themselves to be free enough, have an open line of communication with the director free enough to because it's all muscle memory. It's not so much, acting is not an intellectual exercise, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry if you disagree with me. Yeah, of course you're thinking through certain things, figuring things out. That does take intellect. But mainly, acting is about doing. It's rooted in the physical. It's rooted in the instincts. And that's what I'm talking about, simplicity, that a lot of these other schools of theater, I think sometimes they focus so much on the inner, on the intellect, on beats and this and that. Yes, there's that terminology. Yes, I understand what that terminology is about. But at the end of the day, when it really counts, when it really matters, it's about an actor trusting themselves, allowing themselves to find some nuance, some differences in rehearsal, in performance, especially in performance, with other actors not being thrown off by that. In some ways, that's the mentality, that's the approach, that's the way of working. And yes, some staging needs to be anchored and needs to be tied down. It needs to be very specific. But I think there's a lot more that doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be messy, because if there's good work, there's good work. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be all over the place, because that's not going to happen. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm simply talking about, I think, a lot of these approaches in schools to theater and acting are very, I think, prohibit what I'm speaking about here. And it goes back to simplicity, trusting between actors, trusting between actors and director. And there's this kind of sense of a freedom, a creative freedom and a spirit, and that kind of work, and not getting sucked into these certain techniques that really are not about that. You get stuck in your head. You get stuck. Your instincts are stuck. Your movement is stuck. That's not the type of work that is alive and free and imaginative. Peace.
Tasty.